to Sharing Love from Above, Good News by Ken. I'm Ken, bringing good news to you. I've missed you guys so much. I haven't made a video. I apologize. I hope y'all forgive me. And today we're going to be talking about something a little different. I know usually I give y'all words of wisdom, words of encouragement, and we're still going to be doing that today, but it's just going to be in a different form. So today I'm going to talk about my testimony. And it's not about me, but I feel like it is important for if I do help lead you to Christ, I feel like it is important that you can see where I have came from. That way you can, one, relate to me and know that I'm not just this perfect being, because I'm very, 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 very far from it. But also just so you can see the growth, because God can change anything into good and into His glory. So before we get started, I just want to say I hope my testimony doesn't offend anybody, and I hope that you don't judge me or perceive me in any type of way, because this is what I had to go through for God to grow me, and I'm glad I went through it. So with that being said, we're going to start from the very beginning. I grew up my whole life with my parents not together. They weren't together since I was 1 year old, so I did not grow up seeing that example of love that you're supposed to see. They were my age when they had me, so they were figuring out love themselves. So we're gonna skip to when I was around 9 years old. At that time, my dad he got married, and my mom was still single for the time being, and I went week to week between my mom and my dad, and everything was fine and dandy. I had 3 sisters at my dad's, and I had 2 brothers at my mom's, so it was completely opposite worlds. While I was young, it was good and fine. As I got older, we're gonna say around 12, my mom gets a boyfriend, and they end up getting married later on. And this will be important later on in the story of my life. But around 12 years old is when it started to get kind of rocky, going back and forth from my mom's and my dad's. I got a lot of freedom at my mom's. I would watch my brothers while she worked, because it was just us, so she had to work a lot to help provide for us. And then at my dad's, it was more of a structured, family oriented type of thing that I didn't really yes, we're all going through it together, but I didn't adapt well to it, since I could go to my other house and just be left alone. So at the age of 12, I started getting involved in the wrong friend group, and I started vaping, and nothing else yet, but we were also going to the skating rink or Big Air every single weekend. So my mom, I made good grades, I took care of the brothers, I made sure the house was clean. So when I wanted to go out with my friends on the weekend to Big Air or the skating rink, she was completely fine with it. However, when I was at my dad's, and it was supposed to be family time, and I wanted to go be with my friends, that hurt his heart. He wants me to be a part of the family. So already we have that dynamic where there's not the co-parenting, and me and my dad are starting to butt heads over the situation. So as time progresses, vaping leads to more, and I start smoking weed, and I start drinking. This is going to be around the age 15, 16, so pretty early. And back to the boyfriend that my mom had, or the husband, he was a drug addict, which I didn't know. So me and him were best buds, because I didn't know he was a drug addict, and me and my dad already didn't get along as it was. So me and him were best buds. And one day I brought weed home, and he caught me, and he was like, listen, you don't need to go to strangers, to grown-ups, to these random people and get this, because it's dangerous, and bad things can happen when you're doing things you're not supposed to do. So he was like, if you want to do this, you can come to me, because it is a safer outlet. And yes, it was a bad thing that I was indulging in those, but he gave me a safe way to indulge. So once he gets out the picture, because, well, he was a drug addict, I had to go out and I had to get the things I wanted myself. So at this point in time, this is around 16 years old. I'm working, I'm doing drumline, I'm going week to week for my mom's and my dad's. So my schedule is like super busy. Like I would go to class, 7 a.m., get to school, class starts at 8 a.m., in class 3:30, practice starts at 4, ends at 7, go clock into work at 7 to 10. So I was stretched thin, so I had to indulge in these things so I could feel a sense of like letting go, because I was just doing so much. And that's all I knew was to do a lot, because my mom worked 3 jobs and my grandma before that worked a lot of jobs. So all I knew was to go, 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 go. I want to be the greatest. I want to have great things. So I got to keep going. And it was killing me. So when the stepfather got out of the picture, I had to go and get these things myself. And I was thinking in my 16-year-old brain, I don't want to spend my money on this because I have my priorities straight. I can't spend my money on alcohol, weed, and nicotine. So in order for me to have money for those things, what I need to do is sell those things in order to have money to afford those things. And another vicious cycle gets started. So it starts up slow, and not only am I using these substances as coping mechanisms, I'm also using boys as coping mechanisms. So I would sneak around with boys. I wouldn't do anything bad, at least at this age I wouldn't, but they would just be like a breath of relief. Mind you, these boys are doing the same things, if not worse than I am. I mean, drug dealers, jailbirds, gangbangers. It's embarrassing. But this was my life. So I use these things as like relief from my responsibilities. And eventually I get caught up at school with a lot of stuff. And at my dad ends up kicking me out because, well, they take everything from me. I was selling, so they take all my money, they take everything. And he took my phone, so I'm going through withdrawals. And I could not behave like a normal child going through withdrawals. We'd be having family dinner, next thing you know, I'm up screaming, "I hate you guys." So he could not put up with my behavior, and I could not follow the rules. Therefore, I got kicked out. Now this just made everything 10 times worse. So I stayed at my mom's, and basically while I was grounded, the only person she would let me see was my boyfriend at the time, because he sold for me, and therefore since he sold for me, he was keeping her daughter out of trouble. And my friends are the reason I got into this in her eyes. So he was a good thing for me. So for the next 3 months, and then after I'm ungrounded, he is all I know. And he was very, very, very bad to me, just like mentally. It was just very bad. So once he was gone, I was just all alone, it felt like. And I did have friends, but I felt all alone. I didn't know how to reach out to them because I had just been with him for so long. He was all I knew. So at the age of, we're gonna say like 17 now, I'm doing everything by myself. And 17-year-old girls, if you go to the mall, if you go to the car wash, if you go anywhere, you gotta have your girls with you. I didn't have any girls with me, it was just me. And this was probably the worst emotional state I had ever been in, the worst my depression has ever been. And I was going to kill myself. It was like for another 3 months straight, I just sat in bed and cried, is what it felt like. And one day, when I couldn't do anymore, God came and he was like, Before he even said this, I knew he was keeping me alone because I knew he wanted me to like pursue him. I didn't know what that was. Like, I knew God my whole life, but I knew of him my whole life. I said my prayers or whatnot. So when I knew that he wanted me to pursue him, I didn't know what to do. I was like, and he told me, he was like, it's okay. He was like, you're gonna be okay. And he took all the pain and all the weight off of me, and I felt like just free from the pain I was feeling inside. Now, even though God did this for me, I didn't just up and, yay, Jesus! I didn't do that. I did start to seek him more, and he was all around it. That like he just right into my life. I mean, he was always there, so not surprising. But it didn't get better from here. I still smoked, I still drank, I still sold. I ended up getting robbed a couple of times. I would have guys get with me just so they could steal off on me. I mean, it was very traumatic. It was very traumatic. I thought my car was gonna get shot at one time. Like, I've gotten caught by the cops about 3 different times, and we'll definitely get there too. So, let's see. I told you about the first time I got caught, and that's when I was at school. So, the second time I get caught, I'm hanging out with another bad friend group, and I'm still friends with all these girls today. However, I had to distance myself from them. They were holding me back, and I finally got away from it, and now we can do good now that we're not, dragging each other down. But we have just been in the car all day, probably about 6 blunts total at least, just riding around smoking. We had a lot to do that day, and I was like, y'all, we've been doing too much today. But everybody was like, you're tripping, da 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 da. Mind you, it's my car. So we get pulled over, of course. And I roll down the window and smoke just, and the cop's just like, yo, kind of like in Cheech and Chong. And we had a lot of weed in the car. It ended up getting thrown out of the window. And he ended up making me take a DUI test. And I passed it. And he basically let us off, but he pretended like he wasn't going to. But still, just right then and there, God saved me, because in that moment, there was nothing I can do. I was ensnared in my own net. But God had a plan for me, and he wasn't going to let me get caught up in that. So eventually, I find a way to detach myself from these girls, but the way I do it is not in a great way at all. So at this point, I'm still selling, so we gotta keep going. I get with this guy, and we were really close friends for a long time before we got together, and he did not believe in Jesus. However, everything else was fine, and we ended up having the problem of, well, you're gonna leave the college. Like, I'm 3 hours away now, but at the time it was just gonna be an hour away. Well, I mean, if you believed in God, then you would know this isn't a problem, because through Christ all things are possible. So that's where I seen and got into my mind, I cannot be with a man if God is not his leader. Even though I learned this, I didn't just follow it, I learned all these things, but I was still a fool, and still God looked out for me. Why does he do this? He's so good. So then I get caught another time with more substance. This time more than any other time. I had alcohol. There was alcohol in the car. There was everything. We were down at the beach. It was me and my best friend. So at the time, she's swerving the car. She knows there's a cop behind us. I'm rolling up some weed. I know there's a cop behind us. Literally in our own ways, ensnared in our own nets. You see what I'm saying? And the cop pulls us over, and she finds a whole bunch of stuff, to the point where I think I'm getting in the police car, and I'm crying, and she goes, I'm just gonna write y'all tickets. So we sit there for 20 minutes while we wait for her to write us tickets. Mind you, these tickets, at least my tickets, are gonna be like unimaginable because, well, they're gonna get me for distributing. And she looks at me, and the woman comes back to the car, and she's like, the tickets won't print. Y'all can go, instead of taking us into jail. And in that moment, I was like, no more. And I stopped selling because I was like, God really did save me. Like, there was only one reason why the tickets wouldn't print. Now, at this point, I'm 18. I've bought a Bible. I've started reading my Bible, started seeking God, telling my friends about God. And telling my friends about God was hard. A lot of the times, it would end up with me in tears because they would think I was just crazy or something. But in the end, they finally listened, and they have come to know Christ better themselves. So the story sadly doesn't end there. And something about a testimony, you're always going to go through a test, so your testimony is always going to keep growing. My testimony is growing as we speak right now. I guess next step is I quit smoking weed, and it took me about 6 different tries, and when I finally did stop, it was like the easiest thing I ever did. And I started talking about God at my job, and that was a big deal because I had worked with like all atheists, like people I've never even met before, people I didn't even know existed. Not just regular atheists, but like, I don't know, just like Satanist type of vibe. So it was really hard working there, being who I am. It was very discouraging because I could not open my mouth about Jesus at all without getting bashed. So it was hard, but God sent me who was my manager, and when I met him, he shone like so bright, Jesus is light, and I was like, you have to tell me, like, how are you like this? And he told me Jesus, and he helped me open up about God. So God sent him for that purpose. I mean, there's probably more reasons, but like, he helped me open up about Jesus in my job, and if I could do that, I could do it anywhere, because these people love him to death, but they are mean. So after that, they're still boys. I had taken a long break after the atheist, but 2024, 19 years old, here we are today. I started dating, but it was nothing serious. I just like to go out to eat and get to know them. Wasn't really feeling it, just seeing what I liked, because I didn't know what I liked, because in the past it had all been really bad. So I was seeing what I liked, what was out there. And eventually I gave that a break too, probably until like 3 months ago. I got with 2 guys back to back, and I know that sounds so bad, Jezebel. And it was just so bad for my mental, and I was just seeking my fleshly desires, and everybody that was around me was like, oh, who's next after these 2? But God had to send me those men, that way before I came here to college town, I could learn my lesson, that I'm not gonna find what he can give me. I can't go find it. I didn't find any of these things that he's given me. He gave it to me. So here we are now today, and I am the same girl I was before all of this happened. I used to like to write poems. Here I am, I write poems. I now make these videos and do these things that fulfill my soul. And I want to go work with prisoners because, well, where do you see people that do drugs? You see them in jail and prison. So all of that happened for a specific reason, and I'm glad that it did, because that made me who I am today. That gave me the empathy to be able to relate to these people, to be able to give this testimony, to be able to do what I want to do with my life, which is help people that other people would look at and see them as scum or nothing. So it was a long, hard journey, and it still is a long, hard journey, but God knows what he's doing, and if he could bring me from that to this, he can do that for you too. So I hope this helps you guys see that I'm just as human as you are, and it is by Christ alone that I shine the beauty that I shine now and can give you these videos and can be the person that I am. So I hope this touched your heart, and hopefully I'll be back with another video for you guys. Stay blessed, stay beautiful, and